The billionaire I kissed under the Portland sky didn't just betray me. He never imagined I had secretly placed a time bomb within his cherished marriage contract. No one in the crowded tribunal room anticipated that just 2 words would not only change my life but completely shatter his empire. And there he was, my ex-husband, Alexander Hayes. He looked polished, smug, and full of confidence, dressed in a perfectly bespoke suit as if we were at a gala instead of separation court. His new fiancée sat right behind him, wearing the diamond studs that used to be mine. The tribunal room was packed. Word of this case had spread like wildfire. Headlines already flooded the media. Blaring billionaire tech CEO sues ex-wife for breaching marriage contract. But what they hadn't revealed yet, at least not publicly, was the truth. I hadn't broken the marriage contract. I hadn't cheated. And Alexander was lying through his perfect teeth. I took a deep breath and tried to steady my trembling hands. The tribunal room had air conditioning, but I felt overheated, not from nervousness, but from the sting of deception. I hadn't planned on fighting back. I had quietly signed the separation documents, agreed to the house in the mountains, and walked away with my dignity. But Alexander wasn't content. Kay filed a legal claim, claiming I violated the marriage contract by having an affair. Kay, which, according to our agreement, would force me to pay him almost $8 million in damages. It was insane, delusional even. But now, it wasn't just a claim. It was a full-fledged legal battle. With every person I thought was neutral lining up to testify against me. It began with Sophia, my old Pilates instructor. I saw Ava with a man leaving a restaurant. They looked intimate. The tribunal room buzzed. Then came Dylan, our former driver. She made me pick her up from Silverbrook Lodge every week. Always alone when I dropped her off. Never alone when I picked her up. And finally, the cleaning staff. I saw 2 crystal glasses in the master suite. 2 glasses each time. Each testimony was like a knife twisting deeper. Alexander sat back, arms crossed, eyes gleaming with satisfaction. Next to him, Emily, the new fiancée, dapped her eyes with a tissue, acting as if she were the victim. But the most painful blow came from Maya, my best friend. She'd been my roommate before I met Alexander, introduced us, and even stood by me as my maid of honor. Oh. She was approaching the testimony chair in high heels and a silk blouse, pretending she hadn't been avoiding me since I moved out. I care about Ava, she said carefully. But over the past year, she's changed. She stopped answering my calls, became secretive. I asked her, what's wrong? She said, please don't inquire further. I didn't want to believe it. But it was true. Maya was distancing herself from me. It wasn't me distancing myself from her. No, I was suffocating. I was trying to survive in a marriage built on manipulation, distance, and cold affection. Alexander didn't need to yell or threaten. He just vanished emotionally, physically, evening after evening. And every time I asked where he had been, his excuse was so perfect, so flawless. It felt like it had been carefully planned. Now he was using his own absence, the one he had created, as a weapon against me. My attorney, Ethan Reed, stood beside me, calmly flipping through his notes as if we weren't being theatrically dissected in front of a courtroom full of onlookers. His face was neutral, calm, focused. On the 3rd session of hearings, I broke. He's winning, I whispered to Ethan in the hallway, grabbing his arm. Everyone believes him, Evan, Maya. Ethan didn't respond right away. He just tilted his head, as if trying to figure out the exact moment I lost hope in myself. We signed the marriage contract, I continued. So, how is he turning it against me? We signed the contract, Ethan replied, but did you read it carefully? His eyes gleamed. Let's just say there's something we haven't revealed yet. Timing matters. Once, at a charity event, Emily's mother had the audacity to look at me as if I had somehow ruined her daughter's life. I listened to more testimonies. Emails were read aloud and photos were shown, one of me laughing at a cafe table with my cousin's husband. It's just the two of us. Alexander's attorney insisted it was inappropriate. They didn't know it was an emergency lunch to discuss his sister's drug relapse, something we both swore not to tell anyone about. And now it was being twisted into evidence of an affair. I should have broken down, should have begged the judge for mercy, but I didn't. I sat up straight, hands folded. In my lap, lips pressed into a firm line, because if Ethan had even half the confidence he was showing, something bigger was coming. We were in Portland. Alexander had just closed his first international acquisition for Haytech. We took a long weekend and he surprised me with dinner on a rooftop, beneath strings of lights with a violinist playing Clair de Lune. It seemed like something out of a movie. "I want us to protect each other," he said, pulling out a thin folder from his jacket pocket. It was a marriage contract. I blinked, still a little tipsy from the wine and starry night. "Just for peace of mind," he smiled. "Love you, Ava." I never imagined the man I once kissed under the lights of Portland would one day sit across from me in court, grinning like he was watching a game show. But there he was, my ex-husband, Nathan Holt. Dear viewers, welcome to our channel. Subscribe to receive more stories every day. He was polished, smug, and confident, dressed in a bespoke suit as if we weren't in separation court but at some grand event. His new fiancée sat right behind him, wearing diamond studs that used to be mine. Every seat in the tribunal room was filled. Word of this case had spread like wildfire. Headlines flooded the media, blaring, "Billionaire tech CEO sues ex-wife for violating marriage contract." But what they hadn't printed yet, at least for now, was the truth. I hadn't violated the contract. I hadn't cheated, okay? And Nathan was lying through his perfect teeth. I took a slow breath, trying to calm my trembling hands. The tribunal room had air conditioning, but I felt like I was burning, not from nerves, but from the sting of betrayal. I hadn't planned to fight back. I had quietly signed the separation documents, agreed to the house in Lakeview, and walked away with my dignity. But Nathan wasn't satisfied. He filed a legal claim alleging I broke our marriage contract by having an affair, which, according to our agreement, would force me to pay him almost $8 million in restitution. It was absurd, delusional, even, but now, it wasn't just an accusation. It had become a full-blown court case, with every person I thought was neutral lining up to testify against me. It started with Sophia, my former Pilates instructor. I saw Ava leaving a restaurant with a man. They looked intimate. The crowd in the tribunal room murmured. Then came Dylan, our former driver. She made me pick her up from Silverbrook Lodge twice a week. Always alone when I dropped her off, never alone when I picked her up. And then the cleaning staff. I saw 2 crystal glasses in the master's suite, 2 glasses each time. Each testimony felt like a knife plunging deeper. Nathan leaned back, arms crossed, eyes narrowed with pleasure. Next to him, Emily, his fiancée, dabbed her eyes with a tissue, as if she were the victim. But the strongest blow came from Maya, my best friend. We had been roommates before I met Nathan. She introduced us. This was my maid of honor at the wedding. And there she was, walking toward the testimony chair in high heels and a silk blouse, pretending she hadn't been avoiding me since I moved out. "I care about Ava," she said carefully. "But over the past year, she started changing, stopped answering my calls, became secretive. I asked her, 'What's wrong?' She said, 'Please don't inquire further.' I didn't want to believe it, but it was true." Maya was distancing herself from me. It wasn't me distancing myself from her. No, I was suffocating. I was trying to survive in a marriage built on manipulation, distance, and calculated affection. Nathan didn't need to yell or threaten. He just withdrew, emotionally, physically, evening after evening. And every time I asked where he had been, his excuse was so flawless, so perfect, that it seemed like it had been carefully planned. Now he was using his own absence, the one he had created. As a weapon against me, he simply withdrew emotionally, physically, night after night. Every time I asked where he had been, he had an excuse so perfect it seemed surgically planned. Now, he was using the absence he had created as a weapon against me, my lawyer. Ethan Reed stood calmly beside me, flipping through his notes as if we weren't being theatrically analyzed. His expression never changed, calm, focused. After the third session of hearings, I broke down. He's winning, I whispered to Ethan, grabbing his arm in the hallway. They believe him. Everyone believes him, even Maya. She didn't say you were cheating, he replied quietly. She said you were distancing yourself. That's hearsay, not evidence. It's enough to make me look guilty. He didn't answer, just tilted his head as if trying to calculate the exact moment I lost faith in myself. We signed that marriage contract, I continued. You said it was airtight. So how is he turning it against me? We signed the contract, he repeated, but did you read it fully? Pause. Ethan's eyes gleamed. Let's just say there's something we haven't shown yet. Timing matters, Ava. Trust me. It was strange walking into a tribunal room and not recognizing half the people who claimed to know me. Media personnel. Former acquaintances. 2 women I had seen once at a charity auction, Emily's mother, who had the audacity to look at me as if I had ruined her daughter's life. I listened to more testimonies. Emails were read aloud. Photographs were shown. One of me laughing at a cafe table with my cousin's husband. Just the 2 of us. Nathan's lawyer insisted it was inappropriate. They didn't know it was an emergency lunch to discuss his sister's drug relapse, something we both swore not to tell anyone about. And now it was being turned into evidence of an affair. I should have broken down, should have begged the judge for mercy. But I didn't. I sat straight, hands folded in my lap, lips pressed into a steel line, because if Ethan had even half the confidence he was displaying, something bigger was coming. We were in Portland. Nathan had just closed his first international acquisition for Holtec. We took a long weekend, and he surprised me with dinner on a rooftop under strings of lights and a violinist playing, Claire de Lune. It seemed like something out of a movie. I want us to protect each other, he said, pulling a thin folder from his jacket pocket. It was a marriage contract. I blinked, still drunk on wine and starlight. Just for peace of mind, he smiled. I love you, Ava. But we both come from complicated families. Money changes people. If we ever separate, I want it to be clean, fair. I didn't argue, didn't read it carefully, trusted him as he needed. Me too, because of course he wouldn't deceive me. We were in love, the kind of love that makes you foolish. Sign here. And that night he won his first battle without lifting a finger. The judge called a recess. I went outside and finally exhaled the breath I had been holding since Monday. You need to eat, said Ethan, holding out a protein bar. I took it but didn't unwrap it. They think I'm a liar. He looked at me intently. And they're going to regret that. That night, sitting in my hotel room, scrolling through old photos, something changed. I found a picture from a ski trip to Vail 3 years ago. Nathan helping Emily into a rental car. It looked innocent enough, except for the timestamp it was months before they claimed to have met. And right there, frozen in pixels, was his hand lingering too long on her hip? I sent the picture to Ethan. His response came in a few words. This isn't the only photo. The energy in the tribunal room shifted. Nathan's side was jubilant. They were preparing for victory. His lawyer was already smiling before he stood. Your Honor, he began, we request full application of the infidelity clause in the marriage contract, given this substantial circumstantial evidence. Ethan slowly rose, interrupting him mid-sentence. Your Honor, he said calmly and clearly, we would like to present new evidence and refer to Section 9B of the marriage contract. The courtroom fell silent. The judge looked up. Section 9B. Ethan, Nodded yes, Your Honor. It's called the reversal clause. Even Nathan looked confused. He leaned forward to whisper something. But he didn't respond. Proceed, said the judge. It's cued. Ethan handed over the documents and paused just long enough for the tension to stretch like a taut string. Then he spoke two words I'll never forget. He cheated. There are moments when time seems to stop. Ethan's voice didn't tremble or rise. He didn't need it to. It's just two words. He cheated. They fell like a hammer on the tribunal room floor. I heard a gasp. Several, actually. The room began to buzz, and the judge struck her gavel once not to scold, but to regain attention. She looked at Ethan over her glasses. Explain. He nodded, as calm as ever. Your Honor, Section 9B of the marriage contract describes a reversal clause, one that nullifies the infidelity penalty if Mr. Holt first engaged in an extramarital relationship. Nathan squirmed in his chair. His lawyer leaned in to whisper something, but Ethan held up his hand. I'm not finished. He said smoothly, it also states that if Mr. Holt first breached fidelity, all financial protections are reversed, meaning he becomes liable to pay compensation to Mrs. Rivers. The tribunal room froze. The judge sat up straight. This clause exists. It exists, Your Honor. It's on page 12 of the agreement. Ethan handed her a copy. Nathan's lawyer turned red. This is absurd. This clause was buried in a paragraph that was buried. Ethan's eyes gleamed. You mean the one you helped draft? My ex-husband's jaw clenched. In that moment, I realized he hadn't read the marriage contract either. We were in Chicago, sitting across from each other in a downtown law firm. Nathan's father, Victor Holt, a man who made coldness his character trait, was there too. He insisted on the contract, said it was necessary for optics. I was told a copy would be sent to my legal representative. I didn't have one then. Nathan offered to connect me with one of the family lawyers, a man named Chambers, but I declined. Something about that arrangement seemed suspicious to me. Instead, I hired my own quiet advisor, a woman named Vivian Reed. She was older, sharp, wore glasses that looked like they had seen 1,000 mistakes walk through her door. She read the document. She made suggestions. One of them was the inclusion of Section 9B on addition. She called the Fairness Clause. I remembered her words. Men like him don't expect to lose. But when they do, they don't like finding out it's in. Writing. Ethan presented the next piece of evidence, a series of time-stamped photographs. The one I had sent him, Nathan helping Emily into the car in Vail, wasn't even the strongest. Another image appeared on the screen. A receipt for dinner for two at a private chef's table in Miami. 4 years ago, Ethan spoke again. Mr. Holt claimed under oath that he met Miss Emily Brand during a corporate merger 2 years ago, but this receipt from 4 years ago shows them dining alone together. A dinner costing over $2,000. He clicked again. Another image. A private jet manifest. With both their names and, most importantly, the destination, the Bahamas. The date, the weekend of our 5th wedding anniversary. You could hear people talking. Emily's face turned red. Nathan tried to maintain composure, but his knee was bouncing. Ethan let it all sink in before driving in the final nail. We also have testimony from a former employee of Villa Nagama. She identified both Mr. Holt and Miss Brand and confirmed they stayed under a different name to avoid public attention. We have her written testimony, photo ID, and recorded statement. Silence. And then the judge slowly turned to Nathan. Is there any part of this you'd like to contest? He looked cornered like a fox who just realized he had walked into a trap of his own making. His lawyer stood and stammered a request for recess. Denied. The judge turned to Ethan. Continue. I sat on a bench, my heart still pounding. Emily ran out the back door, sunglasses covering her face but not her shame. Nathan was nowhere to be seen. Ethan sat beside me. You're winning, he said emotionlessly. I didn't feel like I was winning. I felt drained, empty, but also lighter. He never loved me, I whispered. Ethan didn't answer right away. Love, ... Love and power intertwine. You loved him, but he loved control. I remembered the nights when Nathan came home like always with an excuse. He made me feel irrational if I asked questions, how he smiled in public but barely spoke at home. I had been manipulating myself for years, convincing myself the distance was my fault. Now I knew better. Nathan's team changed tactics. They couldn't prove I had cheated. They tried to claim the marriage contract clause was invalid. They argued that I had concealed Section 9B, that it was added unfairly, that he had never agreed to it. But Ethan was ready. He brought in Vivian Reed. She entered like a retired general elegant, composed, unshakable. On the testimony chair, she recalled the contract negotiations in detail. She presented signed emails, draft versions, the final version, all dated and acknowledged. Did Mr. Holt review the final draft? Asked the opposing counsel, trying to find holes. Vivian smiled. I can't speak to whether he read it, but he signed it, and his initials are on every page, including the one containing Section 9B. They had no objections, no loopholes, no typos. It was real, it was binding, and it had been waiting like a planted mine for precisely this moment. Ethan stood for his closing argument. He didn't shout, pace, or dramatize. He simply told the truth, that I had married Nathan with pure intentions, that I had kept our vows, that while he traveled the world with someone else, I was at home protecting our brand, managing our foundation, and maintaining appearances. That the woman they portrayed as cold and calculating was the one keeping a sinking ship afloat. And that, in the end, justice wasn't about loyalty. It was about evidence. I sat alone in the corridor near the tribunal room. A reporter approached me, but I ignored her. My phone buzzed with messages old friends suddenly remembered I existed. Then Emily walked past. She didn't speak, didn't even look at me, but I saw her walking quickly, lips pressed together, as if trying to outrun shame. And perhaps for the first time, I pitied her. Everyone rose. The judge read her conclusion, ruling that Nathan had indeed violated the fidelity clause of the marriage contract, and that Section 9B was valid, enforceable, and fully applicable. Therefore, the court orders Mr. Holt to pay restitution in the amount of $10 million to Mrs. Rivers, plus cover all her legal expenses. A collective pause, and then the gavel came down. It was over. Nathan caught up with me on the steps. "You think you've won?" he said bitterly. I turned. "I know I've won. You'll regret this. You've destroyed me." I met his gaze and said, the words I'd been holding in for years. "You destroyed yourself the day you thought I would never fight back." He scoffed and walked away. Alone, this time I thought I would feel triumph. I imagined that once the verdict was read, once justice prevailed, I would throw my hands up and laugh in victory, that the pain would recede and I would feel whole again. But that's not how it works. After the gavel fell and the tribunal room emptied, I didn't feel like a winner. I felt exhausted. Kai had survived a storm and lost a home. Nathan was right about one thing. I hadn't just won the court case. Kai had destroyed him, his image, his empire, his carefully constructed persona. But what he never understood was that I never wanted revenge, just wanted my voice back. I was packing to leave Lakeview for good. The house was too big, too quiet, too full of memories that weren't real. I needed a place that wouldn't remind me of red wine stains on marble countertops and nights spent waiting by the window for headlights that never appeared. Ethan called. The bank transfer went through. He paid. I didn't say anything at first. "You're officially richer than him now," he added with a slight laugh. "Is that why you took this case?" "No," he said. "I took it because your eyes didn't match your voice when we first met." Meaning, you spoke like someone trying to stay calm, but your eyes looked like someone screaming underwater. I thought about that for a long time. He was right. A letter arrived by courier. No return address. Just a cream envelope with my name written in cursive on the front. Inside, a single page from Emily. Ava, I know you have no reason to believe me, and I don't expect forgiveness, but I want you to know something. Nathan didn't fall in love with me during your marriage. He was already in love with me before it even began. He married you, only because of clauses in his father's will. To lead the company, he had to be married to someone the board would approve of. You were always the safe, respectable choice. You weren't his backup plan. You were his strategy. I stayed silent because I wanted him to choose me. He still hasn't. And now, I'm not sure I want him to dot Emily. I read it 3 times. The words blurred not because my heart was broken, but because I finally understood. I had never lost. To Emily, I had been betrayed by a man who saw people as tools. That same week, Vivian Reed, my prenup lawyer, called me. Ava, there's something you need to see. I met her at her office. She handed me a folder, old, yellowed, sealed. This came from Victor Holt's estate attorney. Apparently, Victor left a letter with instructions to deliver it only to you if the prenup was ever enforced in court. I opened it. Inside was a single-page letter, cold and straightforward. Mrs. Ava Rivers. If you're reading this, then my son has failed to live up to the integrity I once hoped for. I didn't believe in love as a prerequisite for marriage, but I did believe in honor. Nathan has the shine, but shine without discipline is destruction. I saw in you the potential to anchor him. I hoped he would learn from you, but if you're reading this, then he didn't dot. So I leave you this note as an acknowledgement. You were not chosen by accident. You were the best part of a plan he never deserved. Victor Holt. I sat back in my chair. So that was it. The reversal clause wasn't just a legal formality. It was Victor's insurance. He knew his son knew what he was capable of and knew that if I ever needed to protect myself, I would find it in writing. He didn't trust his son, but in some strange, backward way, he trusted me. I sold the house in Lakeview and donated half of the $10 million to a legal aid foundation for women. I opened an office in Chicago called Clause 9. We offer support to women blinded by manipulative contracts, legal intimidation, and financial abuse. We have lawyers, therapists, and accountants. One of our first clients said, I didn't know. I could fight back. I smiled and told her, neither did I. It was at a gala, one of those events I used to attend with Nathan. He was there alone. Our eyes met for a moment. He looked thinner, still polished, but something in him had cracked. He slowly approached. I heard about Clause 9, he said, sipping something amber. Of course you did. He hesitated. No, you were always better than me. I raised an eyebrow. Not better, just no longer afraid. He tried to smile. Honestly, I didn't think you'd read the fine print. That's the thing, Nathan, I said. You always assumed I didn't read the fine print. But you never understood I wrote part of it. I turned and walked away. They all testified against me, said I was cold, distant, possibly even unfaithful. But none of them knew the truth hiding in the margins, in the footnotes, in 12-point font, buried beneath years of silence and manipulation. 2 words changed everything, not just in court, but in me. Because the moment my lawyer said he cheated, I stopped being a defendant and became a woman who knew her own worth.